What a night. Champions League winner, eh? Incredible work. But no time to rest. You're off to New York, my friend. The Red Bulls need you now. It's a fresh challenge, new league, new adventure. I know you'll smash it like you did in Leipzig. Bring that winning magic to MLS. Alright, champ, talk soon, and good luck in the Big Apple.
Hello everyone and welcome to episode number 54 of Red Bull KloppBot here on Sean Does FM, and today we've moved clubs. We are at New York Red Bulls now off the back of that Champions League win at the end of last week with Leipzig. If you missed that one, I'll leave a link to it over in the top right corner of the KloppBot. In the end, had two clubs really to choose between. Obviously Salzburg doing really poorly in the Austrian Bundesliga, not even qualifying for Europe this upcoming season, but in the end, seeing as we've already lifted both the Europa League, Champions League and Super Cup in the continent of Europe, the KloppBots decided to send us over to North America and see if we can save the New York Red Bulls from, at the moment, has been a pretty rubbish season. So we've made our way here to the New York Red Bulls. Hopefully you guys are looking forward to this. My first time managing the MLS ever in Football Manager. We did do a save, the second one ever here on this channel with Sporting Kansas City, the team I actually support in real life, but that was in a World Super League where the MLS rules did not apply. So this is the first time I'm going to have to go through all this MLS designated player and all that sort of stuff that they do have here for this league. But there's a news item off the back of our move. It's come right off the back of that end of season review that we did have at the end of that episode at the end of last week. So there's a little blurb that they've gone through there. Of course, we famously lifted the Champions League with Leipzig back in May, literally only a couple of days ago. It's quite a coup apparently for the New York Red Bulls with their standing, and supporters are excited at the potential of similar successes under their new manager, albeit we'll see what the transfer market does play out like here at New York, whether that's actually going to be achievable this season or maybe a big rebuild going into our first full season here in New York. But hopefully we can hit the ground running and do a decent job, at least get these guys into the playoffs. So a quick look at the league table off the back of this intro. RB Leipzig looking for a new manager. Might even ask the KloppBot who he does want to replace us there over in Germany. But currently these guys are 14th of, I believe, 15 teams in the Eastern Conference, and we'll check out their form soon. It's been pretty rubbish this season, but here's the club overview. They have actually won trophies in the MLS before. The Supporters Shield, they've won that 3 times, and they have won the Western Conference 1 time as well, but never by the looks of it have they won the MLS Cups. Hopefully that's something that we can do here at the New York Red Bulls. You can see there in terms of their history, they were runners-up in 2008 in that MLS Cup. Supporters Shields, they were won in 2013, 2015 and 2018, and the Western Conference title in 2008 before shifting over to the Eastern Conference and being runners-up in 2014, 15, 18 and 2024. So to be fair, that's only a couple of years ago in the save these days. We are in 2028 yet again. We're at the Red Bull Arena, but this one obviously in New York. They've got excellent training facilities, superb youth facilities, and excellent youth recruitment. So hopefully the academy might be quite good here. A 3-star reputation club, so a couple of rungs down from the 5 stars that we did build up there at Leipzig. And they've got a proper rival as well in New York City FC. So could be some quite big derbies coming up here in the MLS. Their status is rich. The transfer budget actually not that bad. £17.5 million in a wage budget, which we'll see how much that actually plays into things with the salary cap in the MLS. But that transfer budget is quite handy. Maybe we can sign some players from outside of the MLS. It looks like they like a 4-2-3-1. We'll see though what tactics the KloppBot does come up with during the course of today's episode. Hjalmar Vink, one of 2 players there who is on loan, of course. That is from RB Leipzig. A really promising centre back, this guy. 4.5-star current ability, 5-star potential for the MLS. Back at Leipzig, I believe he had 3-star current ability and that 5-star potential even there. So certainly he's a really class player there in the MLS. We'll see what he can do for the remainder of the season, and maybe also loan in some other youngsters with high potential from Leipzig. That might be a good way to strengthen up this team and try and get them into the playoffs come the end of the season. There's the board objectives in game itself. Apparently develop players using the club's youth system to grow the club's reputation and spend the original transfer budget. So they do expect us to spend the money, albeit that is just favourable. We'll see how much of that we can do in terms of spare roster spots, and obviously how good are players that we can attract here to the MLS this season. Avoid finishing bottom, so they're not too confident of us turning things around. Also, be competitive in the cup. That'll be difficult. They've already been knocked out next season. Challenge for a domestic cup, so we're going to have to do quite well in that Lamar Hunt US Open Cup, and also hopefully become an established MLS team, which is pretty difficult not to do when there's no promotion or relegation. So not too sure how you could fail that one without the whole promotion relegation thing, but nonetheless we'll try and do that goal, whatever the heck that will actually amount to in-game. Going forward to the next screen, the supporter culture and expectation, play for set pieces, be competitive in the derby, and also maintain a higher reputation than DC United. So that might be another rivalry we do have here at the New York Red Bulls, and going forward we'll skip through this stuff, and we have made our way indeed to the New York Red Bulls. There you can see there's that end of season review that we did have in the last episode, going up now off the back of that Donnarumma getting the goalkeeper of the season there in League, or a mass exodus there of some coaches from RB Leipzig. But there's that news article that we did just see a couple of days off the back of our Champions League win. We are now at the New York Red Bulls here in the MLS. Apparently, there's no ongoing negotiations, so don't have to worry about any players coming in that we don't want. A couple of players in the last year of their contract, a couple of them don't look too good, but we'll see what the KloppBot makes of that, and also where they stack up in terms of our squad depth for the tactic that he does want us to use. But in terms of most of those guys, honestly, I'm kind of hopeful we can improve on players like that, especially those top three, decent current ability and potential, but are in their 30s. So might be a few players here that next season we can try and improve on and try and freshen up our squad here at the New York Red Bulls. A couple of players too who next season do expect to get a bit of a step up in terms of their playing time. We'll sort out the tactics off camera and come back and show you guys all that stuff. But here comes the contract and registration information. Now, I probably can't read through all of this, but we can sign a maximum of 3 designated players. They usually get paid more than the rest of the squad and are of higher quality. It's just like Messi at Inter Miami in real life. But also, no matter what you pay them, they're only going to count towards £13,500 a week in terms of the salary cap. So you can get in some quite good players with those designated player spots. We'll see which players we have here currently and if one of those is still available. Going down a bit further, if you've got a designated player 20 years or younger, a young designated player, that only counts as £2,300 a week against the club's salary budgets. Actually, you get rewarded for signing younger designated players. So that might be a thing that we can do here at the New York Red Bulls, and that will help keep our salary cap nice and low and hopefully help our quality of the overall squad. Just going down a bit further, there's targeted allocation money. That could be interesting once I figure out what that is. Also, you've got senior and off-budget players. Off-budget players given an exemption to the salary cap. The players registered on a senior spot, they will always count towards the salary cap. Going down further, there's all sorts of different contracts here. And of course, you can have your salary cap impact brought down using general allocation money. I'm not too sure if we've got any of that spare. Off to check that in one of the screens here, probably in the finance tab, I dare say. And the minimum wage that we can sign players on is $1,900 a week. And also, players coming through MLS clubs academies are categorized as homegrown. And going down a bit further, there's all sorts of other stuff. Generation Adidas contracts, they're exempt from the salary cap but do pay above the senior minimum salary. And those off-budget spots, there's a fair bit going on here in terms of registration. We'll see if I can get my head around that during the course of this episode, and maybe even sign someone in the 5 days we've got before our first game against the Houston Dynamo. Also, there's an under-22 initiative where we can sign a limited number of players that age or below who will only occupy £2,300 a week in terms of our salary cap budget, or £3,100 a week if they are over 21 years old. So there's a fair bit going on here in terms of the registration and signing process. But first things first, I'll have a chat with the KloppBot, show him our squad here at the New York Red Bulls, and see what tactics he wants us to use here in the MLS. And we've gone forward to the day of our first game in charge here at the New York Red Bulls. As I said, we'll play this coming up in tomorrow's episode. Actually, our first 2 games, both at home, but they do look quite difficult, especially when you look at this form that they've been in here at the New York Red Bulls. Just 1 win there in the month of May, surprisingly, over the LA Galaxy, who in real life are the champions of that MLS Cup. Also, they've been pretty poor in terms of the overall season. They've just won the 5 games, lost a whole bunch, and drawn a few as well. So really, they're not having a good season here at the New York Red Bulls. Hopefully, we can turn that around with this first game that we're going to play in tomorrow's episode. But to be fair, that's going to be tough because Houston find themselves second in the Western Conference. So to be fair, that's the other conference, a different one to the one that we're in. But off the back of that, we also take on Real Salt Lake, who are first in their conference. Again, the Western one, to be fair, their recent form actually not too good. But that's a pretty tough start we've got here at the New York Red Bulls, taking the top 2 teams from the other conference. Hopefully, we can find a way to pick up some points there with those games being at home, but no doubt that will be tough, especially because some players are out currently on international duty, and we've got a few injuries, including to our only out-and-out right back. So an interesting situation we find ourselves in here at the New York Red Bulls when we do join to actually try and sign a player there once we go down a bit further in Matthias Zanotti, not for too much of a fee of £1.3 million, but I tried to negotiate the contract and we can't afford his wage within the salary cap. Not too sure what's going on there, because we've go and have a look at the finances and in terms of the actual league specific stuff, we've still got 14k spare, so we should be fine, I would have thought, but apparently not. So I need to go and do some learning about how things work here in the MLS. It looks like we've still got a fair bit of salary cap to spare there, and also in terms of the registration spots, we do still have 3 available and 2 international spots. Not too sure why that didn't work, that signing that I did just try and make, but unfortunately that won't work, and it's a bit annoying because we do desperately need a right back. But to round things out for this first episode, the New York Red Bulls will show you guys what tactics the KloppBot has come up with, and for the first time, he has gone away from the 4-2-3-1 gegenpress, albeit only ever so slightly. It's a 4-3-3. So what we've got here yet again is a sweeper keeper on support at right back, a complete wing back, but this time on attack. Both the defenders are ball playing. One's a slight change there from what we had at RB Leipzig, and left back, that's a wing back on support instead of the full back on support. So some slight changes there, what was working over in Europe, and also the 3-man midfield, not the 2-3-1. So it does mean we've got a ball-winning midfielder on defend, a box-to-box midfielder on support, and just alongside that, an advanced playmaker on attacks. No central attacking midfielder, but that guy can roam forward from a little bit of a position further back than what we were doing at Leipzig as well, of course, as Omiya Arudija, our right winger, an inverted winger on support out left, and inside forward on attacking up front. We are sticking with the traditional advanced forward, but it's time now to run through our squad, and you'll start to see where I'm looking to improve going into the remainder of the season, especially with those free spare registration spots, if I can figure out how to actually do transfers here in the MLS. In terms of goalkeepers, this will be one of our designated player spots, does get taken up, and also it's one of those quite handy ones by a player who is 20 years old. We've got Faber Flagirioan, who formerly was from Junior FC, only joined here come the start of the season. 3-star current ability and 5-star potential. So to be fair, he looks like quite a promising goalkeeper, the Colombian international here, our first choice at the New York Red Bulls, quite good with both feet. Actually quite happy having him as our first choice option here in goal. A quite good signing going into the start of this year, especially for a fee of just £1.6 million. So he looks quite good as one of those designated player spots, especially with him being so young. And behind him, Christian Pacheco, again a goalkeeper who is quite young. He's listed as the Cup goalkeeper, American 2-star current ability, 3.5-star potential, homegrown, having come through the academy the first couple of years of his career. So a decent homegrown prospect there, albeit his best attribute is eccentricity. Not too sure if that's actually a good thing in game. I'm not too sure. The goalkeepers with that high rating for that attribute can do some rather random stuff, so we'll see when we use him in cup competitions next season just how he performs in that sweeper keeper on support role. As a third choice, we do have a bit of a future prospect we can probably give some game time to in our second team or even our academy, but Patrick Swain is our third choice, 1.5-star current ability, 3 stars potential. Again, that's a player who has come through the academy. So 2 homegrown prospects in behind there, one of our designated players. So I'm actually quite happy with our goalkeeping stocks here currently at the New York Red Bulls. Hopefully that designated player spot on that first choice goalkeeper in Figueiredo does end up being a good one with this new formation that we are using. Now, right back, this is an area, as you saw before, I really think we need to sign someone. Justin Glad is currently there because we've got no one else, especially because the only player who actually is an out-and-out right back, and Nathan, is currently injured, and it's a big injury as well. He's out once we can actually hover over it for 4 to 6 weeks with a broken wrist. Thankfully, usually week-long gaps here in the MLS. I think I miss about 4 or 6 games, but still, that's not ideal. But he's quite a good right back with 3.5-star current ability and potential, formerly of the Seattle Sounders, and also had a stint there at Bragantino back in 2024-25, so during the course of the save. But he's a really good right back, but our only one. So it does mean, as you saw before, with me trying to sign that player from Cagliari, which for some reason would not go through, we do need an extra right back here, especially because centre back's also probably a position we need some extra depth in, because we've only got 3. The first choice, obviously, the loanee from RB Leipzig in Hjalmar. I think we saw it before, one of the better players actually in the entirety of the MLS. Of course, we actually signed him off the Red Bulls a little while ago in game for £7.25 million and loaned him straight back out after they signed him from Willem in the Netherlands for £4.9 million. So we will lose him at the end of the season, but hopefully can sign someone like a Bernardo on loan from Leipzig, who might also do a decent job here next season. That might be a good way to sort out one of those centre-back spots and make sure it is filled by a very strong player here for the MLS. But Hjalmar, I think we've got for the remainder of the season. The backup to him usually would be Justin Glad, but as you saw before, that Nathan injury means that currently he's actually going to be starting as our right back. But here's Justin Glad, 32 years old, probably a player we could look to use in some trade deals. Already a Valuer has come through for another one of our centre backs, but the KloppBot stuffed up the renegotiation for that one with the Portland Timbers. He wanted Mosquera from them and got rid of a draft pick and some general allocation money, and they just pulled out of the deal. So already the KloppBot not doing too well at the whole trade system here at the MLS, but this guy's got 3-star current ability, 3-star potential. He's decent, had a really good stint there at Real Salt Lake over the span of 10 seasons, done decently for us in the last 4 or 5, but is a player who is starting to get on, so we'll see what we do with him. Is wanted by Columbus Crew, Atlanta United, and Montreal. So definitely a player that we could use in some trade deals. We'll just see how that plays out and what the KloppBot does think of that idea, especially if we struggle to sign the right back who can come in alongside the injured Nathan, because obviously he's quite important at the moment with that injury. And also Cole Turner, he's the player who was included in that first trade proposal that we did get from the Portland Timbers, which the KloppBot did stuff up alongside a couple of draft picks from New York City and DC United, of all teams, alongside a little bit of that general allocation money. But he's okay at 27 years old, 2.5-star current ability, 3-star potential, has spent a lot of time in the MLS floating around clubs, but probably a player that would like to improve on, get someone coming with a bit more potential than that, and who is a little bit younger. Certainly quite well served there by Hjalmar Vink, but once we lose him at the end of the season, that could be an area that does need a big old overhaul. We'll see what happens during the course of the remainder of the season there in terms of our trades, but ideally would be 4 deep there at centre-back and also have that extra right back. To be fair though, most other areas we should have enough depth in for the remainder of the season. Left back, our first choice is Noah Allen, who is an American 25-year-old, looks like a perfect player for what we need here in the MLS, with 3.5-star current ability and potential. Formerly from Inter Miami, has been here for 2.5 seasons and done a decent job as a wingback on support. He does look like a very handy first choice. And then behind that, we do have Marco Farfan at 30 years old, might be a player that we can use in trade deals just like before with those centre-backs in behind Hjalmar. I think you can see, not a bad player, and to be fair, can do a job at right back. Maybe that's something we can test out while Nathan is out with that injury, but as a wingback on support, does look like a decent backup there and behind our first choice, which was of course Noah Allen. Going to take me a little while here to learn the names of these players. Now midfield, defensive midfield, the balling midfield role, first choice here is Paula Kuku, who is 31 years old. So I think the KloppBot long-term would like us to sign someone there who is a little bit younger. He's got 2.5-star current ability and potential Ivorian international. He looks okay, but nothing special. Formerly spent some time over in Europe at the likes of Real Betis, Lyon and Huddersfield, but probably a player again that we could potentially use in some trade deals to try and improve on. So hopefully that's an area that we can sort out come the end of this season, despite the fact he is actually an Ivory Coast international. And behind that, a couple of players who actually cover a lot of positions for us here and behind the first choice in this midfield. We've got Callum Styles at 29 years old. He looks pretty average, especially as one of our international slot players. That's probably someone that we will look to offload with 2-star current ability and potential. Is quite versatile, can do a job for us at left back. That might be quite useful while that injury to Nathan's happening. Maybe can switch out Bofan there to right back as we hinged at before. But certainly it is an international player. He looks a little bit average. And behind that, we've got Ronald Donkor, who again, even though he's a bit younger at 24 years old and actually does have a little bit of potential, does still look a little bit average. Probably got more of a future here than someone like Callum Styles. But given he's filling up one of those foreign spots again, he might be someone that we do look to offload, especially come the end of this season. Once I should have my head around the rules a little bit more here in the MLS. Going forward to our box-to-box midfielder, we've got two players here who can do the job decently. Nicholas De La Cruz is the first choice, 32 years old. He is one of our designated players, 3.5-star current ability and potential. So to be fair, I'd like to think at 32 years old, that's someone that we can improve on. But if we go back and have a look at what he does look like as a box-to-box midfielder there, he is the best that we do have. Not too good in terms of strength and positioning as well as balance. To be fair, probably someone who'd be better suited in our other role of advanced playmaker. But considering the KloppBot does want to use that 4-3-3, he'll have to do a job for us in box-to-box midfield. So probably another area that we could improve in, especially given he takes up one of our designated player spots, but certainly should do a decent job for us. Also, actually, just seen that wage, 50k a week. I do think maybe he's someone we should look to let go of, maybe sooner rather than later, just having a quick look at who the interest is from. Toronto and Montreal, he could certainly be a big bit of a trade that we might look to do potentially once we scout a few more players here in the MLS. The backup to him is Daniel Edelman, who is a little bit worse, but is homegrown and does have 3-star current ability and potential. Does look a little bit more natural in that role, but attribute-wise is nowhere near as good as De La Cruz, another player who is wanted by a fellow MLS club. It does look quite handy as a backup. We'll see what we do with him. Probably not a bad option there to keep hold of him. Going over to the advanced playmaker role there, the last one in our midfield. We've got Lanier, who is first choice. He's the final of our designated players. It looks like a role that should suit him. Probably actually, ideally, we actually be playing here a 4-2-3-1. Looking at where he's best suited, but the KloppBot has said we're going to do a 4-3-3, so we will stick with it. 27 years old, out of Brazil, and has spent some time at some pretty big clubs: Flamengo, Castilla, Dortmund, Girona and Granada. Now at the New York Red Bulls, and has been here for a few years, and does look quite well suited to that role that he is playing. So probably our star player here currently at the New York Red Bulls. I think he's one that we do actually want to keep hold of, just not too sure about De La Cruz in that box-to-box midfield role. And behind him, James Robinson. We've called him up from our B team because he actually looks quite decent with 4.5-star potential. So he's someone who could get some game time now that we're here at the Red Bulls for some reason. He's been hiding in the B team despite all that potential. He could be a really handy player who they did sign out of the Chicago Magic. And also, going over the squad, there was someone else who hasn't popped up yet on our squad planner because he doesn't really fit a position that we do use here. But I imagine that Patricio Jimenez might be quite useful as well in that advanced playmaker role with that 2.5-star current ability and 3-star potential, even though he is a reject of the SKC Academy, which isn't probably a very good sign considering how poorly that they have been doing in real life recently. But going back to the squad planner, he probably finds his way into that somewhere around that Robinson mark as well. But Ranier, clearly our first choice there in that role. Going forward to our wingers again here, got someone on the older side of things in Adalberto Carrasquilla, who is out there at right wing, can also do a job in central midfield and in defensive midfield. Originally had him as a backup in the ball-winning role, but actually is our first choice as that inverted winger on support. Not too hot in terms of attributes, so maybe another player that we could look to improve on come the end of the season, but to be fair, 3.5-star current ability and potential is quite good for the MLS, but certainly I think we could potentially find someone out there a bit pacier and a bit younger. In behind him, we have got, once we go back a screen, Ola Kunihasawi. He is a 27-year-old who is the backup there to Karaskia. And once we get him on the right roll there, you'll see what he looks like again. Some attributes that we could probably find someone a bit better in them, but to be fair, he's a local player, so not quite as expendable as some of those international ones if they don't look too good. But certainly with only 2.5-star potential, probably another player that we could look to use in some trade deals. Going back further, the third choice at right wing, that would be Johan Hijduk. So we have a bit of depth there at right wing, but he's a little bit worse there than the player you did see before, even though current ability and potential is exactly the same as signing from Ventura County here in game. And on that roll again, he looks okay, but nothing too special. So in behind there, Karaskia, the depth isn't too great, but he is only okay, I thought, for an international player who is actually going to be missing for our first games, because of course the MLS doesn't take a break for international breaks. That's another thing we have to deal with here. In the MLS out left wing, we've got Lewis Morgan as our first choice, Scottish and 32 years old, but currently injured, albeit not for too much longer. Should actually be back in time for that second game that we do play against Real Salt Lake. Also on the disabled list, don't ask me if he comes off that when his injury does heal, hopefully, because he is our first choice. 3-star current ability and 3-star potential, a decent player who has spent some time at some decent clubs there in England as well as Scotland. He'll definitely get registered once he does recover from that injury. We'll see though if he's a good use of one of those international spots. Going back to the backups on that left-hand side, Randall Leal is another foreigner there who is the backup. He is from Costa Rica, 32 years old, just that slightly less 2.5-star current ability and potential, can do a job for us on both sides as inside forward. That's what he looks like. Actually doesn't count though as a foreign player because he's partly American, so to be fair, he's not too bad. Despite that, age might be someone that we do keep hold of, seeing as there is no interest in him, but he's the backup there to Lewis Morgan, first choice of course, while he is out with that injury. And as the extra on that left-hand side, someone who can also do a job at right wing as well, Nimfasha Burchimas, a 21-year-old local lad who did come through the Charlotte FC Academy. He looks all right, but again, I think there are areas here that we could improve on, but does have a decent amount of potential there with 4 stars. So probably someone that we actually do want to keep hold of, although he is wanted there by some clubs, in particular Atlanta United. So it could be someone we could use in trades with that potential. That's probably not a good idea. And up front, we have 4 striking options, and actually the first choice, not who I expected. It's 22-year-old and Louis Olvera, not as highly rated as the backup, who's a bit older, but attribute-wise, does look like the best of our current bunch. There's a little bit of potential there at 3.5 stars, but current ability-wise, only 2 stars, but does count as a homegrown player, having been signed from Seacoast United Phantoms. So he'll hopefully do a decent job for us up front, but certainly maybe could look there to improve in that striking spot. And behind him, we do have Ivan Plitingen, who is listed as an impact sub, so he'll definitely be doing that for us, a handy player. But at 33 years old and taking up one of those international spots, maybe he's someone that we look to let go of come the end of this season. But a handy player, just a bit surprised that he's actually not as good attribute-wise as someone like Louis Olvera. And behind that, if we do get some injuries, 2 players whose contracts expire come the end of this season. Benji Kikanovic, a 29-year-old, can also do a job on both wings, but 2-star current ability and potential is not too great. Is Bosnian, but does also have American nationality. So thankfully not taking up one of those international spots, but still he doesn't look too hot. So probably a player that we could look to trade off to somewhere else and to round things off with our current squad. Rob Mitchell, a 26-year-old striker again. He is a local and actually homegrown club, but doesn't have too much current ability or potential. So I think both those guys might not last too much past the end of this season here at the New York Red Bulls. But in terms of the squad we've got here currently, desperately in need of an out-and-out right back, especially with that injury to Nathan, and ideally would also sign an extra centre back to make sure we have some depth there if we get an injury, and also of course to make sure we've got some players once Bink does go back to RB Leipzig. So a couple of areas there that we will look to sign some players for or trade for when we can. But in terms of the overall squad depth, it's not actually that bad. 2 spare spots, I think, once we do actually register Morgan on that left-hand side, a right back and a centre back, I dare say, is where we'll be looking to fill those remaining spots once we actually figure out how we can sign players within the remainder of our salary cap here for this season, which if we go back over to those league-specific finances, is only 13k spare. But hopefully that's a good introduction for you guys to our new club here in the save. I'll try to figure out how to do transfers, maybe to go watch a YouTube video on MLS rules or something like that. But we'll come back tomorrow for those big games against the top 2 over in the Western Conference and the Houston Dynamo and Real Salt Lake. But hopefully you did enjoy this one, a bit of a new challenge for us here, and actually could be quite tough considering you got to go through the playoffs, even if you're the best team all season. But if you enjoyed that one, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and have been enjoying the series here on the channel, also make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well. Until tomorrow, we will play our first couple of games in charge here at the New York Red Bulls against Houston and Real Salt Lake. Thank you very much for watching, keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.